Part 1. The Perfect Life in New Caledonia. The teacher spoke to her class, all seated in circle in the middle of a large room, with huge windows letting the forest to filter sunlight to make it gentle and slightly green. That was how we managed to become the only nation in the world without garbage, but I don't want you to stay with the theory. I want you to see New Caledonia's packaging reuse system, and how the zero-waste policy is maintained. This system was designed by the founder, and has been implemented without changes since it began. Remember to bring your signed parent permission slips, said the teacher before the bell rang. In the midst of the chaos at the end of the day, everyone runs euphoric through the huge corridors of the imposing building, preparing for Friday night. Like most young people in the world, they all want to get out quickly, get home and not thinking about studying or school anymore. Undine Strauss, a pale girl with shiny black hair and green eyes, holds several books in her hands, in addition to the heavy bag filled with several more. At a time when books are no longer widely consulted, people look at Undine with a certain strangeness. Undine, we are going to dance tonight, do you want to come? A boy with tousled hair and lip piercings asks her. No, I have a lot to do, maybe next time. Thanks anyway. You have to get out of the newsroom once in a while, it's going to be great. If you change your mind, just call me. I don't know why I still haven't given up on inviting you when you always say no. I have the presentation soon. When everything is over we will meet as before, yes. The boy only walks away, making a gesture for her to call him. Undine had recently been selected by the school to participate in a conference for the foreign press that was taking place in the middle of a national event aiming the world to learn about life in New Caledonia from the mouths of its inhabitants and more accurately, from the youngsters like Undine. She had drawn the attention of some government figures, with the publication of a nationalist article in the school newspaper of which she was the head. It highlighted the advancement of New Caledonian society, after its founding some 80 years ago. Undine was obsessed with the founder, who was the mind behind the founding of New Caledonia. The founder was a mystery, his real name was not known, nor was his face. Undine had read the New Caledonian Constitution several times, which was the only book she knew to have been written by the founder, as well as various manifestos and decrees. Undine was not an easy person to deal with because of her political character and her exacerbated love for her country, as she tended to discuss everything with lots of data and the reasoning behind something. Her talking included a good number of phrases from the founder and the arguments that she used to absorb and memorize from what she read. With her hands full and great difficulty, Undine asks for her public transport service, something similar to a taxi. They are automated electric vehicles, without a driver, solar panel on the roof, with capacity for 6 people, that are ordered online and create a route optimized for its crew. She gets into the vehicle without any other occupants and sighs in the midst of the solitude and neatness of the vehicle. This time, she was not going directly to her house, but she had scheduled an especially long drive looking for inspiration to write her speech for the event. It was a warm day. She rolled up her shirt sleeves, set up her computer on her lap, and while she saw people smile walking with their groceries in hand, free of crime, fear, stress or anguish. The beautiful and meticulously cared urban designs, a mixture of city and ancient Greek temple full of nature, art, statues and luxurious houses. Through the window the smell of the streets of New Caledonia came in, which was a city inside a forest, the smell of leaves, wood, earth and grass. The pressure she felt was great. Since the image of her nation was at stake and the beginning of a promising career was on the table, if she managed to show with certainty and clarity that each word that came out of her mouth was not the only product of her exalted nationalism, which by the way foreigners believed was a practice drilled into the heads of children as an iron doctrine, when this was not true. In fact, one of the biggest challenges for Undine was to correct the view that other countries had of New Caledonia as a dictatorial and undemocratic government, in which its citizens were happy only in appearance, or blind belief, because that was what their citizens were made to believe. Seeing through the window the tranquility, the comfortable life of its inhabitants, the children playing outside without their parents being worried that something could happen to them. People walking on the sidewalks under the shade of the trees without worry, smiling without haste. To that woman who took the fruit from the shelves in the street and greeted everyone as if she knew them. In that city steeped in the forest, which kept a perfect balance with nature, with spacious houses, surrounded by fruit trees, where the sound of birds and the swaying of the trees were omnipresent, being heard even over the car's engine, Undine wrote with a soft smile throughout. The long-awaited day had arrived, the voice of the person presenting sounds as a vague and unclear echo. Undine, at just 17 years old, had not been on many stages in front of such a large and demanding audience. Undine was breathing hard, her gaze fixed as if she were looking more within herself than at what was in front of her. High school student and proud citizen, Undine Strauss, she heard in the distance. Undine walked with her head held high, hardly looking at the audience that was pointing their cameras and microphones at her. At the lectern, Undine finally lifted her face to the flickering lights before her, though greeted with formal applause. They were now all in cold silence and questioning eyes. She took a short, deep breath, approached the microphone and reading her notes with last-minute corrections she began. I love many things, music, reading the writings of great minds long gone, but as unusual as it may seem for a 17-year-old girl. I spend most of my time researching the history of my beloved nation, New Caledonia, taking into account that the events that gave birth to this country, the most evolved that humanity has achieved, are uncertain. They remain lost in time and the memory of those who lived through it, of whom little has been said. This is my nation. Almost all of us who live here arrived not long ago. Everyone here has what they want. There is no money, at least internally. There is no poverty. We all take care of the other and there is no room for accumulation or selfishness. There is no consumerism, no waste. The fact that there is no money does not mean that we are not productive. There is a lot of theory and organization behind our economic model, the short version. The only thing you need to live here is to work at whatever you want. We don't pay for anything, we just show that we are a constructive part of society, and that we contribute in some way. You produce what you think is necessary for others and take what you need. Some manufacture, others transport, others develop, as in the rest of the world. Our past was difficult, but now we have scientists, artists, engineers. Thanks to the fact that we don't need money, anyone can develop and create. So we have the best technology, the most powerful computers, and everything you can imagine. For this reason, I want to give you a little look inside our life. In New Caledonia, worship and respect for nature are exalted, but no religion is prohibited. We recognize that nature gives us everything and an acting against it is a serious crime that affects us all. Killing a person or an animal, even a tree, is the same here. Is that strange? I don't think so. It's a matter of logic to respect the only God we can see. We are a country that does not produce pollution or garbage, and whose electricity is 100% sustainable. Our lawyers are also philosophers. We have a different legal system, inviolable, impossible to manipulate, where animal exploitation is prohibited, criminals are exiled or receive severe punishment, and corruption carries the death penalty. We are not hippies, we are not a dictatorship. Our internet is not restricted. You are free to think what you want, dress what you want and in general do what you want. Nonetheless, we have many rules so that one of the greatest achievements of humanity will not fall. We believe in the right to life and human rights. but that good people take precedence over those who do harm. We are the only country in the world that expands its territory by 0.3% every decade, without firing a single bullet. Just because people from neighboring territories have wanted to annex New Caledonia. Welcome to New Caledonia, the happiest nation in the world, the only one that has reached the peak of the development of human civilization, where the earth and its people are one. Thus creating an authentic paradise. Be yourselves witnesses to the truth of my words, touring the country opening its arms to you. Thank you. Undine finished in a clear, calm voice as she walked away from the dais, shaking hands with the delegates on her way out. The people of New Caledonia applauded vigorously, the rest of the audience reluctantly, but truly shocked to see the clarity and conviction in Undine's eyes. In favor of the organization and development of the event, the main exponents were asked not to give additional testimonies to the cameras upon arrival. Since the government was encouraging foreign media to visit the interior of the country and not only listen to the speeches and opinions of the exponents. End of page 7. Free sample. Part 2. The Founders and the War, the Birth of New Caledonia's. Undine had reached the end of the hall, but Professor Marcus was out of sight. Then a dim warm light began to appear from behind a statue, tucked into an arched gap in the wall. As Undine moved closer, she saw that the statue had a gap behind it, leading to a doorway that was hidden among the wall decorations almost imperceptibly. Professor. I'm here, come in, don't worry, you have to see this. Your entrance was quite enigmatic. It's very dark. Did you find something dangerous? My apologies. I don't intend to make a special entry. I just can't get closer at this time. Undine could smell tea in the air. The cold draft of night had a faint paper smell that was changing to the smell of burning wood while the place was getting warmer. Undine came to a huge wooden door that stood ajar. She knocked softly, receiving a whispered invitation to enter. She timidly entered and found herself in a huge room, with furniture, a sofa, elegant crystal chandeliers, a black floor and huge windows overlooking the forest. In front of a huge fireplace and a glowing fire, the silhouette of the man stood there, looking into the fire, while the opera caster diva played on a long play player. Professor Marcus, what is this place? Marcus gently closed the door behind Undine. Home sweet home, Marcus said as he pushed the cart with the teapot and clinging crockery. Undine reacted with surprise to the almost ghostly appearance of Marcus, who made no sound until he revealed himself. This way please, don't be afraid, come over here, Marcus said. Please come closer, my name is Andrew, it is a pleasure to meet you. I have seen your presentations and I have read your writings, you are the result of many years of work. I'm so sorry to have brought you this way, but believe me that by the end of the meeting you will realize it have been worth it. I have to assume the hidden file thing wasn't real and this is all about getting to know you, is that correct? That's right, excuse me for that too. The man approached her slowly. As he moved away from the blinding fire, she got a better look at the man speaking to her. He was an old man, with hair still colored and a look of bright green eyes like her own. The man moved well, if somewhat stooped. Do you live here? Why did you want to meet me? I have seen you, you are a brilliant girl and you represent the ideals on which this nation was built. You are the result of several generations of children born here, and who consolidate the dream of the most evolved society on earth. I also heard you talk to your friends. I was in the cafeteria, in the museum, in the capital. You know this country very well, and your way of speaking and explaining confirms it. Undine's heart was racing. Her hands were already shaking and her breathing was quickening as she pieced together the events she lived through. I want to talk to you because I want to tell you what is not in the books, today, as a gift from me to me, on my 101st birthday. The founder, right? It is a great honor to know you and... The honor is mine, please. So much etiquette is not necessary. You are a symbol, a hero, a legend. I just want to invite you tea and cakes while I tell you the story of New Caledonia, my story, our story. I understand that you can't stay until very late, so we can start if you're interested, and we'll continue another day to tell you everything. I'll tell my parents that I'm going to be late, please don't rush. I want to hear everything. Are you sure? Like I've never been. If you excuse me, why me? Why didn't you ever do it? Because. Don't be impatient, you will have answers to everything if you are willing to listen. Very good. Marcus talked me into doing this before I die. He doesn't really write history, it was just a white lie. I never wanted to be treated like a dictator, a god, fawned over, hated and loved, a person who would live forever in fear of being killed or poisoned. I knew that. So the figure of the founders should never be exalted, we would become dictators, and become an idea that could be overthrown as well. Almighty people didn't want to be a person with too much power as in all dictatorships, that is why that factor was important. What would separate us from communism, and totalitarian, or autocratic regimes? That leader figure had to disappear, to dissolve. But you were always there, protecting the country, organizing it and cleaning it up, undine. To a certain point, but by not seeing me, by not making public appearances, people only began to assume that they only had to obey order and laws, but not a leader, a human being with power. Break of free sample. Part 2, The War. In a helicopter were Nathan and Saoirse, both wearing the white mask. From behind, an assistant, also masked, gives each one a rocket launcher that they prepare with great skill. Visual contact. I confirm target, southwest column, Saoirse said. Affirmative, proceed, the pilot answered through the communications system. The helicopter was quite far away, the presidential palace was in the distance. Inside the palace the arrogant president yelled at everyone, out of mind. Get me out of here with my family, to my property outside the city, bring me my vehicle right now, the obese man shouted, sweaty and red with anger. We are ready to get you out of here, Mr. President, said the assistant. About time, this chaos is too dangerous. Everyone was on alert, his bodyguards tried to communicate, but could not make anything work. There was an annoying and strange interference that prevented any syllable from being understood between the interlocutors. The president's security was already preparing to evacuate the head of state away from the city. There were vehicles outside the palace, and soldiers guarding the exterior. Meanwhile Saoirse and Nathan were carefully aiming the guided projectiles. Within the works they had done, there was a tracker inside the palace, as well as several microphones inside the bricks they had installed. I hear target near column, linking weapon to tracker on wall. Target found, fire. One after another they fired the two projectiles that traveled through the air avoiding obstacles, and constantly correcting the trajectory. Seconds later, as the president walked through the palace, the shells hit bricks that had been strategically placed long ago. The entire wall was blown to pieces, with a huge ball of fire that completely wiped out a whole wall of the palace, and a good part of the building. The helicopter then approached at high speed while Nathan scanned the scene with an infrared camera. I see armed men inside. I also see a lot of activity outside. Then two projectiles were fired again, this time from less distance. Another great explosion in the lower part of the rest of the building impacted. Although not as big as the previous one, it ended up damaging the bases of the structure, and finally made it completely collapse. Activity ceased, 97% chance of success, Nathan reported. I'm seeing survivor activity in the parking lot. They may fire on us. Retreat, Seisha said. The helicopter turned away from the circle it was making around the ruins of the palace and sped away. This is the end of the free sample. If you're enjoying New Caledonia by Lugh Grimm, please consider to purchase the full book. Check the links to find the options available to get your copy. Thanks for your support.